New details are emerging about an incredible operation Israel carried out against Hezbollah, an operation Israeli officials are saying was more successful than the famous beeper operation, where Israel exploded several thousand sabotaged pagers in terrorist pockets. Also, we'll get into the strange details behind the US, Israel, and Iran ceasefire, what's actually happening behind the scenes, and President Trump begins a possible historic shift with NATO. I'm Ben Hilton, and this is the Israel Guys. Israel just announced that they have been carrying out a quiet but massive operation against Hezbollah in Lebanon. According to Defense Minister Israel Katz, quote, "The IDF attacked hundreds of Hezbollah terrorists in headquarters across Lebanon in a surprise attack. This is the largest concentrated blow Hezbollah has suffered since a beeper operation." All of this information isn't entirely confirmed yet, but an Israeli official apparently said that Israel has developed a new capability that made it possible to locate and strike directly at Hezbollah's command and control systems. Like the beepers, this is a capability that Israel has had for quite some time and has been saving for the right occasion. When the decision was made to go for it yesterday, Israel was able to attack over 100 Hezbollah command centers within the space of about 10 minutes. And allegedly, these command centers were some of the most covert infrastructure that Hezbollah had. According to early assessments, hundreds of Hezbollah operators were eliminated, including many commanders, which is a huge upgrade over the beeper operation since that mainly targeted lower-level terrorists and not commanders. Israel hasn't announced the details of the technology they used. I'm guessing for now they still find a strategic advantage in keeping it a secret. I'm sure we'll get the full scoop, though, sometime in the near future. But according to that statement by the Israeli official, somehow Israel was able to track Hezbollah commanders. They were able to pinpoint top secret command centers, their exact location, and to destroy 100 of those command centers over the course of a few minutes, which is kind of wild. By the way, if you enjoy this content here on the channel, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to make sure you never miss a video. As I'm sure you've seen over the last few days, Iran conceded to President Trump's ultimatum, and the US was able to begin a ceasefire. Both Trump and Bibi, though, have been very clear that their fingers are still on the trigger should Iran try anything stupid. Trump wrote just a few hours ago on Truth Social, he said that the U.S. is keeping all U.S. military assets exactly where they are in case he needs to restart attacks on Iran. He also made it very clear that the U.S. is not stopping until the Strait of Hormuz is reopened and Iran gives up their enriched uranium. Apparently, Vice President J.D. Vance is set to fly to Islamabad this coming Saturday, along with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, to hammer out negotiations with the Iranians. So far, the strange events of the last 48 hours have not been super promising that an easy deal will be reached. Just hours after the initial ceasefire, the Iranian parliament speaker accused the U.S. of violating 3 components of the 10-point proposed ceasefire. He claims that Lebanon was included in the ceasefire, which is telling. We'll get into more of that in a minute. He also claims a drone violated their airspace, and that supposedly an Iranian right to nuclear enrichment was guaranteed in the plan as well, which we'll get into more in that again in a minute. U.S. officials, for their part, have been pushing back on this narrative hard. President Trump said the agreement list the Iranians have been throwing around is fraudulent, and White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt had this to say.
With the president's deadline fast approaching and the United States military completely decimating Iran with each passing hour, the regime acknowledged reality to the negotiating team. They put forward a more reasonable and entirely different and condensed plan to the president and his team. President Trump and the team determined the new modified plan was a workable basis on which to negotiate and to align it with our own 15-point proposal. The president's red lines, namely the end of Iranian enrichment in Iran, have not changed. And the idea that President Trump would ever accept an Iranian wish list as a deal is completely absurd. The president will only make a deal that serves in the best interests of the United States of America, and he as a negotiating team will focus on this effort over the next 2 weeks.
Also, J.D. Vance said in a statement that the first 10-point proposal from Iran was probably written by ChatGPT and was immediately thrown in the garbage. He said there was a second 10-point plan that was sent, and that one was much more reasonable. And he also said there was a third 10-point plan floating around social media, which is even worse than the initial draft Iran sent. So that's also good to know. In regard to the operation Israel carried out against Hezbollah, Vance had this to say.
Let me say a couple things. First of all, I actually think, and there's a lot of bad faith negotiation and a lot of bad faith, propaganda going on. I think this comes from a legitimate misunderstanding. I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't. We never made that promise. We never indicated that was going to be the case. What we said is that the ceasefire would be focused on Iran, and the ceasefire would be focused on America's allies, both Israel and the Gulf Arab states. That said, the Israelis, as I understand it, again, I'm supposed to get a fuller report when I get on the plane, have actually offered to be, frankly, to check themselves a little bit in Lebanon because they want to make sure that our negotiation is successful. That's not because that is part of the ceasefire. I think that's the Israelis trying to set us up for success, and we'll, of course, see how that unfolds in the next few days.
Honestly, it's very good to see Vice President Vance sticking by Israel on this. It not only shows integrity on his part, but it also is a very clear indication of just how inaccurate a lot of what we're seeing on social media and on the news networks actually is. Honestly, right now, since there's so much misinformation circulating about Trump's intentions, Israel's intentions, Iran's demands, etc., we're almost better off just listening to what is actually being said by U.S. and Israeli officials in favor of humoring the rumor mill that's been turning out fake news like McDonald's turns out hamburgers. The amount of false reporting that has happened over the course of this war from American news sources and on social media has been kind of staggering, to put it mildly. On that note, I want to take a second to remind you just how badly Iran is losing right now. Hamas is very close to a possible disarmament. Hopefully we can get into that in a future video, but they are very close, hopefully, God willing, to a full disarmament in Gaza. The Houthis only managed to fire off a few symbolic missiles towards Israel over the course of this latest war. Iran's enriched uranium is buried in a pile of rubble from U.S. strikes last year and is under constant surveillance by U.S. satellites, according to President Trump, and is useless to them for the moment. Their missile stockpile has been devastated over the last few weeks. They've only been able to shoot a few random missiles here and there towards Israel with little effect. Over the course of this entire war, Iran has fired about 400 ballistic missiles at Israel and only managed to kill 23 Israelis. As devastating and tragic as those deaths are, and I don't want to gloss over the tragedy of those who lost their lives, but this is a very far cry, thank God, from Iran's stated goals to wipe Israel off the map. Also, an entire several levels of Iranian command have been completely destroyed, and at this point it's difficult for the US to even figure out who to negotiate with because so much of Iran's command has been wiped out. And Hezbollah, Iran weekly protested Israel's actions against Hezbollah this week over the last couple of days, but both Israel and the US threw it back in their faces, and Israel proceeded to continue their destruction of Hezbollah's command centers, and there's nothing Iran can do. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what winning looks like. Israel knows this, also America knows this, but those who are out of touch seem to be NATO countries. Honestly, it's kind of pathetic seeing how weak NATO has become. Destroying Iran's offensive capabilities is in the best interest of many European countries, yet many of those countries have not only not lifted a finger to assist in this fight, but have also been actively blocking America and Israel from using their airspace and airfields. NATO was supposed to be a mutual benefit arrangement between the US and European countries, not the US acting as a bodyguard and a babysitter. President Trump has been stating his frustrations in this regard more and more over the last few weeks. White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said the other day, quote, "It is quite sad that NATO turned its back on the United States over the past 6 weeks, especially when the U.S. is the one funding its defense." President Trump doesn't hold the power to leave NATO entirely without congressional approval, and that approval would probably be impossible to get at this stage. So he is reportedly beginning the implementation of a different strategy, and that is moving troops out of Western European NATO countries like Germany, France, and Italy, countries that haven't supported the US actions in Iran and moving them into Eastern European countries such as Poland and Romania. This is one of several options that the Trump administration is weighing right now, so we'll see how this plays out. If they were to go ahead with this, this would be a massively historic move, one with far-reaching implications for years to come. Guys, before we wrap up, I have something really exciting I want to show you. If you saw our cinematic short film on the mountain where God spoke to Abraham, Alon Moray, you'll be very excited to see we have another short film for you. Take a look at this teaser.
Shiloh was the unifying spot that brought the nation of Israel together 3 times a year. A total of 9 red heifers have been sacrificed. But today, here in the place in ancient Shiloh, where it all began many years ago, a possible 10th red heifer could be behind these doors. What I'm holding in my hand is pottery that is literally 3,000 years old. The Ark of the Covenant was here. God's presence literally rested in this spot. Nothing good ever comes from giving away God's land.
I could not be more excited about this project. We put a ton of work into this. If you want to watch this, please click the link in the description where you can register for a reminder when the film drops. It will be coming here to the channel April 19th. We also need your help in spreading stuff like this. I believe more people need to see the beauty of the land of Israel, the beauty of Judea and Samaria, and how that beauty is connected to God's faithfulness and his promises spoken to his people over the centuries. Also, if you appreciated this video here, please give it a like, leave a comment below, and share it with a friend. As always, thanks for watching.